High above Chicago, Maria Lopez clung to a steel beam, her welding torch spitting fire into the dawn. The city sprawled below, oblivious to the hairline crack. She'd just found a fracture in the heart of the Orion Tower, the tallest skyscraper yet to scar the skyline. One wrong move, one ignored warning, and this whole damn thing could collapse, burying thousands in steel and glass. Down on the ground, the crew laughed, called her paranoid, just a woman trying to play engineer. But Maria knew something they didn't. She'd seen this before in her father's eyes, in his stories of jobs gone wrong. And tonight, as the wind howled and the suits pushed for a faster finish, someone was watching her from the shadows, a man who knew the truth about the tower's flaws and carried a secret that could bury them all. The Chicago skyline was a jagged puzzle of steel and glass, half-finished and hungry for more. At the heart of it, the new Orion Tower clawed its way toward the clouds, a skeleton of beams and ambition. Maria Lopez tightened her ponytail, her boots crunching on loose gravel as she stepped onto the 45th floor. The wind howled sharp and cold, tugging at her worn coveralls. Below the city thrummed honking cabs, shouting workers the relentless groan of machinery. It was a chaos she'd grown to love, the only woman in a sea of hard hats, her welding torch a scepter in a kingdom of iron. Maria was 32 born and raised in Pilsen, Chicago's South Side, where the air smelled of tamales and diesel. Her father Javier had been a welder too, his hands calloused maps of a life spent bending steel to his will. He'd taught her everything: how to read a blueprint, how to spot a bad weld, how to stand tall when the world tried to knock you down. He hadn't lived to see her graduate trade school, but the framed certificate in her trailer was for him. She touched the pendant around her neck, his name etched in silver, and took a deep breath. Another day in paradise. She crouched beside a central support beam, the heart of this whole damn structure. Her torchlight glinted off the metal, revealing a hairline crack in a weld. It was small, barely noticeable, but Maria's gut twisted. She'd seen cracks like this before, tiny warnings of big disasters. This wasn't just sloppy work. Something was wrong, deep in the bones of the tower. She ran her fingers over the fracture, her mind racing. The Orion was set to be Chicago's tallest, a glittering trophy for the suits downtown. But if this beam failed, it'd be a graveyard. Lopez. The foreman's bark cut through the din. Frank Malone, but everyone called him Buzz, a grizzled man who looked like he'd been born squinting into the sun. Sector 5, welding inspection. Move it. The suits are breathing down my neck. Maria stood brushing dust off her knees. On it, Buzz. She slung her tool belt over her shoulder, the weight familiar as an old friend. Sector 5 was the newest section, racing toward an impossible deadline. The walk up the half-built skeleton made her stomach clench. Heights weren't her thing, but fear came second to getting the job done right. Floor by floor, she checked the welds, her flashlight dancing over pitted metal. Most were solid. Some were rushed, the usual mess of a crew pushed too hard. Then she found another crack, then a third. Her dread grew heavier than her tools. Back in her trailer, a cramped haven of greasy wrenches and faded blueprints, Maria pored over the structural plans. The numbers didn't add up. The central beams were designed to carry massive loads, but the stress distribution was off, not by much, but enough. She remembered her father's voice, steady as steel. Check twice, Maria. Always check twice. She scribbled calculations, her pencil scratching like a warning. The cracks weren't accidents. They were symptoms. She tracked down Claire Nguyen, the junior engineer in the site office. Claire was 26, fresh out of MIT, her dark hair tucked under a hard hat. She was smart, but green, ignored by the senior engineers who treated her like a kid. Maria slid her notes across the desk. Claire, look at this. These beams, the welds, there's a problem. If we don't fix it, this whole tower could come down. Claire's eyes widened, scanning the numbers. "You're sure this design's been triple-checked by the big shots?" "I'm sure," Maria said, her voice low but firm. "I've been welding since I was 16. I know what I'm seeing." Claire chewed her lip, glancing at the door. "If we report this, it's our necks. The investors want this done yesterday. They won't listen to us." Maria leaned in her pendant, glinting under the fluorescent light. "They'll listen if we make them. You're an engineer." "You know I'm right." Claire hesitated, then nodded. "I'll run the numbers tonight. But Maria, you're sticking your head in a lion's mouth. Better that than burying us all under rubble." Maria said, half a smile breaking through. That night, Maria barely slept. Her trailer rattled with the wind, the blueprints spread across her table like a battle plan. She thought of her father, his quiet pride when she'd made her first perfect weld. He'd believed in her even when the world didn't. By dawn, she'd made up her mind. She wasn't backing down. The next morning, the site was a hive of noise and motion. Maria found Buzz surrounded by blueprints, his face a storm cloud. She didn't flinch. "Buzz, we need to talk. Those beams in Sector 5, they're wrong. The stress load's off, and the welds are cracking. If we don't fix it, this tower's a death trap." Buzz scoffed, tossing a pencil onto the table. "Lopez, you're a welder, not an engineer. Stick to your torch." She shoved her calculations at him, the paper creased from her grip. "Look at this. The math doesn't lie. Those beams can't handle the load. I found 3 cracks already, and there'll be more." He glared at the paper, then at her. "You know what this means, delays. Millions in overruns. The suits'll have my head, and yours too." Maria held his gaze, her voice steady. "Better our heads than 1,000 people's lives. You want to be the guy who signed off on a collapse." The trailer went quiet, the crew outside, pausing to eavesdrop. Buzz's jaw worked his stubble, rasping as he rubbed his chin. "You're sure about this?" he growled. "You're betting your job on it." "I'm betting more than that," Maria said. Buzz crumpled the paper, the sound sharp as a gunshot. "Fine. Get Claire in here. We'll run it by the structural guys. But if you're wrong, Lopez, you're done." The next hour was chaos. Engineers swarmed the site, their laptops humming like angry bees. Claire confirmed Maria's calculations, her voice shaking, but clear. The crew whispered, some throwing Maria dirty looks, others nodding in grudging respect. She stood to the side, her tool belt heavy, her heart heavier. She'd lit the match. Now she'd see if it burned her down. By noon, the suits arrived, 3 men in polished shoes, their faces tight with irritation. Maria stood in the site office, her coveralls streaked with grease as Buzz laid out the problem. The lead investor, a guy named Hargrove, cut him off. "This is nonsense. We're on schedule. You're telling me to tear down half the tower because some welder thinks she's an engineer." Maria stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room. "I'm not an engineer, Mr. Hargrove. I'm the one who sees the steel up close. Those cracks are real. You ignore them, you're not just risking my life, you're risking everyone's." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "You got proof, sweetheart." The word stung, but Maria didn't flinch. She nodded at Claire, who slid a folder across the table. Eddie, her friend from the crew, had slipped her a damning piece of evidence that morning, a memo showing the company had cut corners on materials to save costs. Claire's voice was steady now. "These documents prove the beams were under spec. Maria's right. We fix this, or we're looking at a catastrophe." The room froze. Hargrove's face went red, but he didn't argue. Buzz rubbed his temples, muttering under his breath. "All right," he said finally. "We stop work. Reinforce the beams. Lopez, you're on the repair crew. Don't make me regret this." Maria knotted her throat tight. She didn't care about the glares from the suits or the grumbling crew. She'd done what she had to. The repairs took weeks. Maria worked double shifts, her torch sparking through the night. The crew was split. Some called her a hero, others a troublemaker. Eddie stuck by her, cracking jokes to keep her sane. "Man, Maria, you're like David taking on Goliath, except your slingshot's a welding gun." She laughed, the sound raw. Yeah, well, Goliath's still standing. Claire became her ally, double-checking every fix, her confidence growing with each day. One night, as they worked under floodlights, Claire said, "You know, I almost quit this job last month. Thought I didn't belong. You changed that." Maria shrugged, wiping sweat from her brow. "We all belong. Just gotta prove it." The work was grueling, but the cracks disappeared. The beams grew stronger. Maria's hands ached. Her eyes burned, but she kept going, her father's pendant, a quiet reminder of why. Some nights she'd catch Buzz watching her, his scowl softer now, like he was seeing her for the first time. When the repairs were done, the tower stood solid, its skeleton ready for the glass skin that would make it shine. Maria stood on the top floor, the city sprawling below like a broken toy. The wind was gentler now, the pendant cool against her skin. She thought of her father, his voice echoing, "You did good, Mija." Buzz found her in the trailer that evening, tossing a battered hard hat onto her workbench. Foreman's position opened up. He said, his voice gruff, but not unkind, "Think you can handle it?" Maria turned the hat in her calloused hands, her heart pounding. "Don't know," she said finally, "but I'll try." Buzz grunted, almost a smile. "Damn straight. You've earned it." The news spread fast. The crew's whispers turned to nods, some reluctant, others genuine. The new girl on the team, a young welder named Anna, looked at Maria like she'd hung the moon. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Some of the old-timers still gave her the cold shoulder, and the suits would never love her. But up here in the world of iron and sweat, she'd carved out her place. Months later, Maria stood on the finished Orion Tower, now Chicago's tallest. The city glittered below, alive and unbroken. Foreman Lopez had a nice ring to it, but it didn't erase the hard stairs or the weight of what came next. Anna, the new welder, followed her like a shadow, asking questions, learning fast. Maria saw herself in the girl's eyes, the same hunger, the same fight. She gripped the railing, the metal cold against her palms. Had she changed things, or was she just a better-paid cog in the same machine? One day, Anna would stand where she was now. Would she see a hero or a warning? The view from the top was a long way down, but for today, Maria wasn't falling. Hey listeners, if Maria's story hit you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every voice matters. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight.